I'll never forget the look on Linda Grayson's face when she marched into that courtroom. Her auburn hair teased into a perfect helmet, her designer heels clicking with every self-assured step. She clutched her lawsuit papers like they were a royal decree, probably already picturing how she glowed about her victory at the next HOA meeting. Linda, the iron-fisted president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, had spent months trying to crush me under her endless rules and fines. She thought she was about to deliver the final blow, teaching me a lesson about defying her authority. What she didn't know was that I had a secret weapon tucked inside my weathered leather briefcase. Documents that would wipe that smug smirk off her face and replace it with pure, unfiltered shock. Documents that proved something so ridiculous, so poetically just, that I could hardly believe in myself when I first stumbled across it. Linda Grayson, the self-proclaimed queen of Willow Creek, had built her entire backyard oasis complete, with her prized gazebo on my property. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the moment I made the colossal mistake of moving into her kingdom. 6 months earlier, I'd taken what I thought was a golden opportunity. My realtor, a cheerful woman named Susan with a penchant for floral scarves, had pitched me a hidden gem in the prestigious Willow Creek subdivision. The lot at the corner of Oak Lane and River Road was a steal, sitting on the market for over a year. The price was well below market value, the location was a dream for my daily commute to the city, and the 1970s split-level house, while a bit dated, had charm and potential. I could see myself sipping coffee on the front porch, maybe planting a garden in the spacious backyard. What could possibly go wrong? I signed the papers, handed over my life savings, and moved in, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to hit. The trouble started the very next day. I was knee-deep in cardboard boxes, trying to organize my mismatched collection of dishes, when a sharp, insistent knock echoed through the house. I opened the door to find a woman in her late 40s, dressed like she was auditioning for a role as a corporate executive in a suburban drama. She wore a tailored blazer with the Willow Creek HOA logo embroidered in gold thread, crisp white slacks, and a pair of glasses perched on her nose, giving her the air of a librarian about to scold someone for an overdue book. In her hand was a clipboard, which she held with the authority of a scepter. "I'm Linda Grayson, president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association," she declared, her voice clipped and devoid of warmth. "We need to discuss several violations I've already noted on your property." I blinked, still clutching a chipped coffee mug. I hadn't even been here 24 hours. "Violations?" I asked, genuinely confused. She didn't hesitate. "Your moving van was parked on the street for 4 hours and 37 minutes yesterday, which exceeds the 3-hour limit outlined in Section 4.2 of the HOA bylaws. Your lawn is 0.3 inches above the maximum allowable height of 3 inches, and that mailbox," she pointed to the rusty, slightly tilted box at the curb, "is not one of the 3 approved designs." I prepared a list of fines totaling for $150. She thrust a stack of papers at me, her lips curling into a smile that was more predatory than welcoming. "Consider this your official welcome to Willow Creek," she said, before turning on her heel and striding back to her house, a sprawling modern monstrosity directly across the street, complete with a manicured lawn and a gazebo that looked like it belonged in a magazine. I stood there, dumbfounded, the papers trembling in my hands. This wasn't just a neighborly heads-up, this was a declaration of war. Over the next few weeks, Linda's visits became a relentless ritual. She fined me for leaving a garden hose coiled in my driveway, claiming it was unsightly and violated the HOA's aesthetic standards. She measured the spacing between my recycling bins with a ruler, issuing a $75 fine because they were 2 inches too close together. When I hung a bird feeder in my backyard, she sent a certified letter claiming it was a potential nuisance to neighboring properties and demanded its immediate removal, along with a $200 penalty. The breaking point came 3 months into this nightmare. I received a thick envelope from the HOA, delivered by a courier who looked almost apologetic. Inside was a demand for $3,600 in back HOA dues plus late fees, dating back to the previous owner. According to Linda, the prior homeowner had stopped paying dues 2 years before I bought the house, and as the new owner, I was liable for the entire amount. I called the HOA office, hoping to reason with someone, anyone. But Linda herself answered, "There's no discussion to be had," she snapped. "Every homeowner in Willow Creek is contractually obligated to pay dues. If you refuse, I'll have no choice but to place a lien on your property and pursue legal action." That night, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by the chaos of unpacked boxes. I pulled out every document from my closing: the deed, the title report, the survey maps, the mortgage agreement, everything. I wasn't a lawyer, but I wasn't about to let Linda steamroll me without a fight. As I sifted through the papers, something caught my eye: a faded document titled Easement and Land Use Agreement, dated June 22nd, 1968. It described an easement that extended my property line beyond the lot I purchased, granting me rights to a narrow strip of land that ran along the edge of the adjacent property, Linda's property. Curious, I logged into the county's online property records portal and started digging. What I found made my jaw drop. The easement wasn't just some forgotten technicality. It covered a significant portion of Linda's backyard, including the area where her beloved gazebo stood. According to the records, the easement was part of a deal struck by the original developer in the 1960s to secure funding for Willow Creek. The developer had granted long-term easements to certain lots, including mine, to make them more attractive to buyers. These easements were still legally binding, and no one had bothered to update or resolve them when the subdivision was built out decades later. The next day, I drove to the county recorder's office, a squat brick building that smelled of old paper and coffee. There, I met Clara, a clerk with a warm smile and a knack for navigating the labyrinth of property records. She helped me pull the original survey maps and development plans, which confirmed my suspicions. The easement extended 15 feet into Linda's lot, encompassing not just her gazebo, but part of her meticulously landscaped garden and a corner of her pool deck. "This is a mess," Clara said, shaking her head as she handed me a stack of photocopies. Back in the 60s, developers did all sorts of creative things to finance projects. Most of these easements were forgotten when the properties changed hands. Armed with this bombshell, I hired a real estate attorney named Rachel Nguyen. Rachel was a no-nonsense lawyer with a reputation for handling complex property disputes. Over the next 3 weeks, she reviewed every document, cross-referenced county records, and consulted with a surveyor to confirm the boundaries. "This is wild," she said, leaning back in her chair during our second meeting. "Linda's gazebo and part of her pool area are technically on land you control through the easement. She's been trespassing for years, and she doesn't even know it." I didn't want to tear down Linda's gazebo or make her life miserable. I just wanted her to stop terrorizing me. But when another letter arrived, this time demanding $4,100 in dues and threatening a lawsuit, I knew it was time to act. Rachel drafted a response, politely informing the HOA that my property was exempt from membership due to the pre-existing easement, which predated the HOA's formation. We also hinted at boundary concerns that would need further discussion. Without revealing the full extent of our discovery, Linda's reaction was swift and furious. She showed up at my door the next evening, her face flushed with indignation, waving her letter like it was a personal insult. "This is absurd," she shouted. "You think you can dodge your obligations with some ancient document? I've been running this HOA for 15 years, and no one's ever tried this nonsense. You'll pay, or I'll sue you into oblivion." Catherine, I stayed calm, which only seemed to make her angrier. "Linda, I suggest you have your lawyer look at the easement agreement," I said evenly. "It's not nonsense, it's illegal. Fact, I'm taking you to court." She spat, storming off. "You'll regret this." True to her word, I was served with a lawsuit a week later. Linda was suing me for $12,000, covering unpaid dues, late fees, legal costs, and get this, emotional distress costs of the whole board. Rachel and I prepared our defense, deciding to keep our ace in the hole under wraps for now. Our initial response simply restated the exemption and requested dismissal of the claims. But we also filed a counterclaim for trespassing and unjust enrichment, seeking compensation for Linda's use of my easement land. Linda's attorney, a nervous young man named Ethan Caldwell, called Rachel within days, his voice tense. "My client may not have fully understood the situation," he said during the conference call. "Can we discuss a settlement?" Linda, however, was having none of it. At the settlement conference, she sat across from me, her arms crossed, glaring, like I'd stolen her crown. "This is outrageous," she said. "I've owned that house for 15 years. You can't just claim my backyard with some dusty old paper." Rachel laid out the evidence, the easement agreement, the survey maps, the county records. Ethan's face grew pale as he flipped through the documents. "Mrs. Grayson," he said quietly, "these appear to be valid. Your gazebo and part of your pool are on his land." "Then the documents are fake," Linda snapped. This is a scam. The mediator, a retired judge named Margaret Lopez, reviewed everything carefully. After a long pause, she said, "Mrs. Grayson, these records are legitimate and legally binding. I strongly recommend you settle this." Linda stormed out, declaring she'd rather go to trial than give in. Ethan chased after her, his voice pleading in the hallway. 3 months later, we faced off in court. Linda strode into the courtroom like a queen, her HOA president pin gleaming on her lapel. She shot me a venomous look as she sat at the plaintiff's table. Judge Thomas Rivera, a stern man with a reputation for fairness, presided over the case. Ethan argued that I was a delinquent homeowner dodging my duties. Rachel, in contrast, presented our case with surgical precision. The easement predated the HOA, exempting my property, and Linda's property encroached on my land. Judge Rivera studied the survey maps, comparing them to modern satellite images. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. "Let me get this straight," he said, his voice measured. "Mrs. Grayson's gazebo and pool deck are on land controlled by Mr. Carter through a valid easement?" "That's correct, Your Honor," Rachel confirmed. "Mrs. Grayson, were you aware of this when you purchased your home?" the judge asked. Linda's face was ashen. "No, Your Honor," she stammered. "This is news to me, and yet you've been enforcing HOA rules and finding Mr. Carter for months," he said, raising an eyebrow. After 15 minutes of deliberation, he delivered his ruling. "I find in favor of the defendant, Mr. Carter. His property is exempt from HOA membership due to the easement agreement. The plaintiff's claims are dismissed with prejudice," he continued. "As for the counterclaim, I find that Mrs. Grayson has been unjustly enriched by using the defendant's land. While I won't order the removal of the structures, given the time elapsed, Mrs. Grayson is ordered to pay $20,000 in back rent for the past 3 years, within the statute of limitations, and $500 monthly going forward, adjusted for inflation." Linda leapt to her feet, her chair scraping the floor. "This is insanity. I'm not paying rent for my own backyard." "It's not your backyard, Mrs. Grayson," the judge said sharply. "And you're lucky Mr. Carter isn't demanding the removal of your gazebo. Furthermore, your pattern of harassment against him stops now. Any further violations will result in contempt of court." Linda's mouth opened and closed, speechless. Ethan packed up his briefcase, looking like he wanted to disappear. As we left, I overheard Linda on her phone, her voice frantic. "Emergency HOA meeting tonight." "No, it can't wait." 2 weeks later, I received a $20,000 check from Ethan, along with a signed rental agreement for the easement. A second letter from the HOA informed me that Linda had been voted out as president. After the board learned of her humiliation, her reign of terror was over. Neighbors whispered about her downfall, and her reputation in Willow Creek was shattered. 6 months later, a moving truck appeared at Linda's house. She couldn't bear living across from me, paying me rent, and facing constant reminders of her defeat. She sold her house at a loss, forced to disclose the easement issue to buyers. The new owners, a friendly couple named the Wilsons, are wonderful. They pay their rent on time, and we've become friends, sharing beers at their barbecue last summer. I heard Linda moved to a condo in a neighboring town, one without an HOA. I like to think she's learned her lesson about reading property documents. Every month, when that $500 check arrives, I'm reminded of the day Linda Grayson discovered that the ground beneath her precious gazebo wasn't hers at all.